Thank you everybody for joining us today. I am so excited to welcome you to the Tory Burch Foundation Business Webinar Program presented by Bank of America. Today's session is all about unlocking team effectiveness. We are going to dive in and learn about practical tools to build high-impact teams that are grounded in vision, adaptability, and trust, as well as how to lead across multiple different work styles and really create a culture of collaboration and accountability. I am your host today, Molly Heffernan, Vice President of Marketing for the Tory Burch Foundation team. And to say that I am over the moon about today's session would be an understatement, because we have a three-time webinar host, a Tory Burch Foundation Fellow, CEO and founder of ReImagine Talent, Chelsea C. Williams, with us today. I see Chelsea coming on camera. Hi, Chelsea. A bit about Chelsea. Chelsea and her team, they support employers, education institutions, and nonprofits in spearheading a multi-generational workforce and talent development solution that is ultimately rooted in belonging. Chelsea is also a frequent contributor in media outlets like CNBC, Fast Company, Investment News, Insider, Forbes on how to really manage and lead multi-generational teams and engaging the development of the Gen Z generation. So, I mean, I would say, Chelsea, we're in the best hands possible for today's topic. And we're so glad to have you. I'm going to give a couple of reminders to folks before I completely pass it over to you. So for everyone tuning in, after Chelsea's presentation, we will have plenty of time for Q&A. So be sure to ask questions in the Q&A box, and we are going to do our best to get to as many of your questions as we can. So Q&A box for your questions, and use the chat for all of that great community connection and networking with one another. Take notes, but also today's session will be recorded and you can watch your inboxes for a replay link from us. So it's okay if you want to go back, you want to revisit and you don't catch it all in real time, because the resource will be there for you long term. So I think with that, Chelsea, I'm going to pass it to you.
Amazing. Well, Molly, thank you so much for the invitation to you and the team and the warm introduction. I'm so thrilled to serve the almost 250 founders, leaders, visionaries that are here today. We are talking all about team effectiveness. For those of you who have been on a journey with some of my webinars, we started talking about people and culture about a year ago, and then we went into navigating and leading through change. And today we're talking about how to make your team its most effective possible. Okay. So I want to let you know that I'm excited about this webinar because it's going to be a little bit different than how I have facilitated before. I will have an amazing Tory Burch fellow join us for a spotlight at the end of my content so that you can understand how founders are navigating through team dynamics and team effectiveness today. Okay. So first of all, let's just start with the foundation of where we are. There's so much that's taking place internally in our industries, our sectors, our cities, states, countries, but also macro, right? Whether we're talking about the economic environment, I've been finding myself speaking with a lot of founders who are talking about, regulations and tariffs and technology innovation and just the workforce in terms of access to talent, managing the talent that you have. And so we thought that this conversation on effectiveness, taking that step beyond just finding the team members that you need, but really thinking about how you optimize team for growth, for impact was essential to our conversation today. So in our short but sweet time, we're going to talk a little bit, like Molly mentioned, about team effectiveness and the drivers. I'm going to give you some very core drivers of what builds strong teams. We'll talk a little bit about work styles and some practical steps that you can take to optimize for work styles, leveraging tools and resources. We'll talk a little bit about wellness in work. Don't believe you can talk about team without talking about culture and wellness as a bridge and foundation to culture. And then again, you will hear from our fantastic guest. So I want to start with a little bit of a pulse survey. So get those phones out for me, please. And you will scan the QR code that's on the left-hand corner. These questions will just help get a sense of who is in the house today. So, what stage would you categorize your business today? Are you in the early stage, 1 to 2 team members, growing and building stage, 3 to 10 team members, scaling and formalizing stage, or the established and optimizing scale 50 plus? Please take about 30 seconds to tell us where you are on the journey of scaling your company. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. Perfect. So we're seeing right now, top two places are you're in the early stage. You might be a solopreneur or you have a team member, and then followed by the growing and building stage between 3 and 10 team members. Fantastic. That's what we thought that this group would be. But I also love to see that we have got some established and scaling founders and business owners in the house. We will definitely have practical strategies and insights for all of you. So good stuff. Okay, now, as it relates to your team, what's one desire that you have for your business in the next 6 to 12 months? So, thinking about team and your vision and your hope for those team members or person or growth, what is of optimal importance to you? 30 seconds to respond. Please keep it short and sweet so that we can continue on with our pulse surveys. Operational excellence, streamlining services, lower turnover, building a team that allows for growth and autonomy, sustainability, stability amongst the current team. That's right. There's so much going on, and keeping the team connected and empowered is vital. Customer growth. A lot of us are talking about revenue and profit and making sure we can retain our clients and land and expand, as we like to call it. Business and organization increasing volume. Again, more stability in the house. Fantastic. Better client satisfaction. Systems. Love that. And the Tory Burch Foundation has a lot of great content, and one of the places is around operations. Love it. Continued growth with margin. Excellent. Professional development. Building a social media following. Excellent. Let's give it 10 more seconds for your goals and your vision around your team in the next 6 to 12 months. What are you hoping to happen? Diversifying funding streams. Awesome. Okay, we are now going to move on. Happy to hear that you're clear about what you are desiring for your team, because this session is going to support that particular growth that you're desiring. So let's get into it. Let's get into the content. In one word, when you hear team effectiveness, what comes to mind for you? Now, I want you to really try to give me one word. I know it's tempting, but one word, team effectiveness, what comes to mind for you? 30 seconds to respond. Listening, success, awesome, alignment, trust, cohesion, consistency, visibility, initiative, goals, planning, streamlining, hard worker. Love it. 10 more seconds. When you hear team effectiveness, what comes up? Buy-in. I love that one. Constructive. Excellent. Confidence. Synergy. I love the word synergy. Love it. Dedication. Smooth. Awesome. 5 more seconds. When you hear team effectiveness, what comes to mind? Great and consistent customer experience. Wonderful. Well, you all are exactly in the right place today, because, like I said, we're going to be unpacking what team effectiveness means. And you were right when you said success. If you go to the definition and look up formally what team effectiveness means, it is success in achieving the results that you want for your team. So every single response that was in our poll is accurate and aligned, because it is your vision, your desire as the founder, owner, or operator of your company. So team effectiveness is all about results, which you set and you measure, and it's about you, not what the latest award for small businesses says is success, but what you deem to be success, and how you create the organization, the systems, the process, the people to get you to those results. Okay, we are on one page there. This is an important conversation because the average adult living in the US will spend 90,000 hours or a third of their life at work. So if we are spending so much time at work, we are founders and leaders with vision. We are founders and leaders who are trying to push towards making an impact. The people who are part of that essentially important. And it is essential that we make sure that we are maximizing and optimizing our teams so that work is joyful. I know people don't think that there's a connection between joy and work, but I believe that that is what most of us are aiming for as we think about the impact of our organizations. So this is an essential conversation as we think about maximizing the time that we spend together. And here's the thing, every hour is maximized through intentional teamwork. So that time that we're spending together, the more intentional and clear we are on our team members and how we are engaging, working, collaborating, managing conflict together, the better we're maximizing our time and reaching our goals and vision. So when we talk about team effectiveness, there's two pillars I want you to understand. Effectiveness, when we talk about results, is about elevating performance. Now, I know that that word performance, sometimes we can say, oh, is there a place for performance? I think about sports or athletics. But the concept of performance is how we come together using our skills, our gifts, our abilities, our talents, our connections to make an impact. So when we have effective systems and practices, we can elevate performance. And when we can elevate performance, we can create deeper, wider, more impactful value. And that is why we are in business. And that is what sustains businesses and gets them to the growth level over time. Okay, so performance, value, key pieces of the effectiveness equation. So I want to talk a little bit before I get into some practical strategies on a bottleneck that you may have observed to team effectiveness. Now that I've defined it, why do you believe that team effectiveness can be so challenging for founders, for leaders in today's workplace? What's a bottleneck that you've observed? Unclear expectations. Absolutely. Let's keep it coming. 30 seconds. Bottlenecks to team effectiveness. Communication. Absolutely. Entitlement. That's right. Volume of work. We have a strong feeling of burnout and overwhelm as resources constrain and people are doing more with less. Conflicting goals or lack of clarity on those goals. People not always knowing who's doing what. Okay, that friction in communication. Your ability to simply produce. Lack of skills, poor management, poor leadership. Not everyone's vision aligns with yours. That's absolutely correct. We can't perform and we certainly can't create value if there is a mismatch in that. Absolutely. 10 more seconds for bottlenecks. Team members don't know each other. Trust, big word, could be its own workshop. Hesitancy to share new ideas. Absolutely. So you all were absolutely right, and then some, okay? But a couple of the three bottlenecks that we see as we work with organizations are, you all mentioned it, unclear and or misaligned purpose, values, and goals. And literally all of those. Purpose, vision, if you want to use that word, why we are here, okay? Our values, what moves us, how we work, how we lead, how we navigate through conflict, and our goals, where we are going on whatever measurement you use, KPIs, OKRs, etc. Lack of clear measured systems and process, right? It doesn't mean much if I have a vision, but I have not thought about as the leader the environment in which my team needs what they need to fulfill that purpose and that value that we've talked about. And so operations, the engine, becomes essential in making sure that we are operating effectively. And then this other piece here is a newer phenomenon we are discussing more. You may or may not have heard of psychological safety. So when there is a lack of safety from a psychological standpoint, meaning that we're not embracing differing views, there's a blame game culture, there's fear of mistakes, we cannot get the most out of our people because they're not showing up as their best selves and offering the value that is so essential in them being able to be a part of reaching our vision, our values, our goals, etc. Okay, so these are common bottlenecks. I now want to have a moment for you to think through, now that I've mentioned some of the bottlenecks, your particular your particular place and space of where you are as it relates to team. So, as I go through this, I'm going to give you 4 health drivers of effective teams, and then we're going to transition into some reflective questions that are going to help you start to think about where you are. Okay, so I absolutely love this slide. I have found it to be so essential in team effectiveness in 2025. There are 4 key health drivers to team effectiveness. Source for this is McKinsey. They've done extensive research on this, on what makes teams effective, particularly in the change wave that we find ourselves in society. These 4 pieces are the critical phases to that concept of team effectiveness. Number 1, team configuration. This is the concept of, do you have the right team members on the ship of your organization, the capabilities, the skills that are necessary for your product or service to get into the marketplace and to grow? First phase. Then alignment. Do we have people who are aligned? It's that purpose, values, mission conversation, because the alignment becomes so essential in sustaining effort and energy, especially during times of change or when pressures are high. Sounds like 2025 to me. Okay. Next, team execution. What do I mean when I say team execution? How we actually get to the target, how we get to the goal that we're setting. So we might have the right people with the right skills. We may be aligned by values and purpose, but if we don't have a measurement, a process to measure our work and our impact, support of clients, our products and services being desired, highly desired and sought after by our customers, we miss the piece of growth and sustainability. Now, what I love about this is you might be saying, yeah, got it, I get it. But this team renewal is the newer addition to this concept of team effectiveness that has become an essential piece of how we make sure that we have synergy amongst our team. And it is all around well-being. The evolution of this really coming in post-COVID into this moment as people are starting to ask themselves, how do I make sure that I am in a culture, I am in a workspace that is healthy, that is additive to my well-being? And so renewal is that concept around well-being and energy and the way you as a founder, a business owner, promote that for your team members. Okay? So we're now going to go through those 4. I have a question aligned with each. If you've got your notebook and your pen, I want you just to write down whatever comes to mind as we go through these, okay? So first reflection question is configuration. Do we have the right balance of skills, experiences, and perspectives to achieve our goals? And I want you to consider this on a 1 to 4 scale. 4 meaning very strong, 1 meaning area of opportunity. And I just want you to write down where you fall today, not where you want to be, but where you are, as a place that we can come back to. Do you have the right balance of skills, experiences, and perspectives to achieve the goals that you have set as the visionary of your organization? 10 seconds. Next question, alignment. Okay. Are we clear on the values and behaviors that guide how we work together? Now, a lot of times we might say, well, it should be very clear what we value. It's on our website, or I talked about it when we were in interviewing or onboarding. But the concept of repetitive language around values and setting clear expectations of behaviors is an essential piece of ensuring your team is effective. And so I want you to think about, whether you think about values and behaviors separately or together, where do you currently land on the scale of 1 to 4 as it relates to alignment? Again, very strong 4, 1 area of opportunity. 20 seconds. Execution. Do we have the resources and systems in place to do our work capably? This is all about our standard operating procedures, right? Our way, it could be our framework. If we are in a role where there's a special framework or ingredient or a system that we use that's very specific to what we do, is it clear? Because that becomes essential the more you grow your team and the more that you're able to be transparent and clear with your team about what success looks like. Okay. So again, you're doing that same scoring 4 to 1. Final question, renewal. Are we attentive to energy, morale, and well being to sustain performance over time? Because that's the whole conversation around renewal. If we say performance is essential, okay, we have to think about sustaining that over time. And this is where the concept of renewal becomes essential. So I want you to think about renewal as the fourth pillar, very strong for one area of opportunity. 20 seconds. All right. You all know by now that I love a good poll because it allows us to see how we are in community. So I want you to think of those four health drivers that I just went over with you, and I want you to think about your team's greatest area of opportunity today. Is it configuration, right team and capacity? Is it execution, tools and systems? Is it renewal, fueling well-being, or is it alignment, your values and behaviors for clarity and synergy? 30 seconds after going through that pulse, where are you today? What's the opportunity? 20 seconds. Love it. I always love when it is not a consistent, dominant response because it lets us know that each and every business is in a different place, a different stage. And it really allows you to see the uniqueness for your particular organization. So you all are obviously seeing the mix here. Right team and capacity is leading the polling. Probably not a surprise because the highest rank for team size was solopreneur to one employee, so that makes sense. But again, I want you to see that there's variance depending upon the business. So great stuff. Awesome. Okay. So now I'm going to go into some practical strategies that you can take. What we've seen work well for founders and small businesses at ReImagine Talent. So we've talked about it, but you want to make sure that you adopt systems that drive team success. And systems, repetitive processes that are powered and aligned with your organization are key. So, some things that you'll want to make sure that you have in place is aligning work to goals and styles. You'll want to make sure that you're aligning your ethos of why you exist, your goals that you set to quarters, to years, and to make sure there's a measurement and plan for your team. Because again, that allows transparency and people know what the benchmark and the goalpost is. Styles was an add-on that we believe is important because every single team member has a different way that they work. We believe, and I'm going to talk about it shortly, in assessments as tools for you to know as a founder, as a leader, where your team, DISC, Globe Smart, falls on a continuum, what their individual assessment profile is, and then how that compares to others on the team, because it becomes information that can be used as you guide, motivate, empower different people on your team. You also want to make sure you plan and track work together. This is where I think of project management tools. This is where I think of the ability to have transparency to what is taking place, whether inter-team or cross-functionally. It becomes essential that there is that information and communication vision. Unleashing collective knowledge. This is where we think about how are we sharing knowledge across our teams? What are the opportunities? Is it a standing meeting that we're having once a month? Is it a couple times a month where we're coming together for ideation, design thinking sprints? Is it an opportunity for us simply to be able to invest in learning, whether it's time or physical dollars, and the ability to come back and share that for the benefit of the organization? And then finally, here, integrating feedback loops. If there's one challenge that we often hear people leaders, people managers, executives talk about is feedback. Either I want more of it or I'm not getting enough, or we're giving it and it's not landing the way that I thought that it would land. So the concept around feedback, being open to feedback, defining feedback as a driver and a indicator of development for the whole team, and then creating the outlet for feedback to be a normal part of how you work are essential systems and practices that can help your team be successful, particularly when we're navigating change like we are today. Okay, I'm going to go through that because of time. So I mentioned to you all that there's great tools that you might consider. Team assessments are a great one. We're big fans of assessments at the onboarding stage. Once you've made a hire and you want to go ahead and get oriented and have the team understand that you value their unique experiences and style. We use this, you may use DISC, but it's a great way for you to be able to gather and offer that information for a new hire and then track differences across your team. It's a great way to get you all effective by understanding that differences are an added value, but yet with those differences, we have to flex style in working with each other towards common goal. You want to make sure you're being mindful of leading change with transparency. This is huge and again could be its own session. Because the truth of the matter is, there is not a place where I believe a founder or business owner is not navigating change right now. Some of us in multiple areas, right? And so, just some things I want you to keep in mind as we talk about change and as we talk about transparency, which helps to make sure that your teams experience trust. Provide consistent updates on your org health. This is vital. You may not tell everything that's going on. I'm not necessarily saying you need to pull up your P&L, but there should be transparency around how the organization is doing in a way that allows your team to be mindful and intentional about their time and understanding, second point, the importance of being agile in the environment you find yourself. So you as a leader will need to encourage your team to understand agility, being adaptable, being open to the changes that are happening and not necessarily stagnant in the way things have been done before. Helping to support resilience, maybe sharing experiences in your founder journey or in your career before founding your company where you have navigated through something unexpected and came out better because of it. That language and that messaging from founders and leaders becomes essential for teams. You'll want to acknowledge that you will not or don't have all the answers. That vulnerability is so important when we're navigating through change, and it allows your employees, your team members to see you as human and to understand that you are on the ship together. And then finally, we've been talking about this. Feedback should be a common practice. Now more than ever, feedback becomes an essential part of how you build the bridge and connect your team members together so that you can make that value and impact we've been discussing from the beginning. Couple more, and then we're going to have our guests join. Make sure you have the right tech stack. This is essential. We've been talking about systems and processes, and that came up in the poll as a desired place of growth for you all. Nowadays, there's a benefit to technology because it can help us to connect our teams, to measure impact of our teams. I have a couple up here that we love and that we use. I'll go through them really quickly. Slab is the top left-hand corner is Slab. It's a knowledge sharing tool. So we use that for onboarding. We are a training development and HR consulting company. So our frameworks, our learning, PowerPoints, content, etc., live here so that there's never any questions about where our content is and how we use them in service of our organizations. Padlet is amazing for design thinking. You all have seen ChatGPT before, but there's a Teams version, which is really powerful for knowledge sharing. Fathom note takers, again, I know many of you may use this or another one that helps you with transcription, making sure no one is missing information and that there's accountability tool to follow up. Loom is great for, again, communication, knowledge sharing, going through in live time updates that can make sure that people are being able to share feedback and capture those to make an impact. And then ClickUp is an example of a project management tool. We have Latimer on here. We believe in inclusion. So it is a language processor that helps to support inclusive cross-cultural communication as a way to make sure when we're thinking about our team and our client that we are meeting them where they are and from their lived experience. Okay. So I will not go over all of this, but we know that AI can be a powerful tool in supporting team effectiveness. And so when we talk about AI, and you may or may not be using this today, I really thought through some of the ways that our partners are using AI as a way to help support team effectiveness. And this slide shares what you may or may not be doing. Meeting, productivity, and follow-up, ideation and decision making, again, with teams. That's a really powerful way on the chat feature for you to have dynamic dialogue discussions and picking up where another colleague may have dropped off in their process or planning. Administrative tasks, cultural and inclusive communication. I just mentioned that. And then we added on here learning development plans. As you're building team, you need to be thinking about onboarding. And so you can use AI as a way to crowdsource internally within your systems and processes what people need to know and what they need to grow to know over time. But then also other tools and resources out in the web that can be supportive of them as they get up to speed 30, 60, 90 days plus. Okay. Obviously, this should go without saying. Remember, you're going to need to create and communicate and deploy an organizational AI policy. That is a way to support team effectiveness so folks are clear on your expectations and your vision for how AI is used as a tool that helps to support your team's proficiency and efficiency. Okay. Well, I am really thrilled now that I get to have our lovely guests come to the stage. So, Ambar Lopez, CEO and founder of Neta Collab. Can I have you here, Amber?
Yes. Hi, Chelsea. Excited to be here.
Hi. It's so good to see you. We spent some great time together last week, and I'm really excited for the community to hear a little bit about how you are driving team effectiveness at your agency.
Thank you. Yeah, I love talking about team culture. It's really important to us at Neta. And so thanks for having me, and thanks to the Tory Bridge team for having me as well.
Cool. Well, why don't you start by just sharing a little bit about who you are, and then we'll get into a couple of questions.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. I am the CEO and founder of Neta Collab. I've had my business for it's going to be our 7th anniversary in December. And so for a little while, and we've grown from being, just basically running it ourselves to having now a team of around 20, combination of employees and then contractors and freelancers. And so I've really had the chance to grow and just learn so much along the way. I also am really proud of being self-taught. I had a pretty weird childhood and education experience. I didn't go to traditional high school. I dropped out of art school. And so I think just being a self-learner and being self-taught is something that I feel like is so important as an entrepreneur, and learning how to manage a team. It's a challenge, and it's also something I really love doing. And so I'm so excited to be here to talk about culture. I'm also based in New York, and so I'll mention that as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you are in agency land. Anyone who knows agency, amazing work, but high pressure and demands as you're supporting your clients and partners. So, talk to us a little bit about how you have built strong culture in those high pressure environments with the focus on creativity and collaboration.
Yeah, definitely. I love this question because Nitha Collab we're focused on creativity and collaboration, so it's perfect for us. So as Chelsea mentioned, we basically, to put it super simply, we run creative campaigns and create branding for social impact. We work primarily with nonprofits, and so a lot of what we do is very fast turnaround. It's figuring out how to really reach the moment where we're at, and so for me, it's been super key to have a team that trusts me and that trusts each other and that is able to collaborate in a really powerful way. I think like the first thing, I think leading by example is super, super important. It's really important to me that my team trusts me, that they can come to me with questions, that I've created a space where there's no bad question, right? There's no idea that is a bad idea. We also talk a lot about constructive criticism. So really encouraging, providing criticism that has a reason behind it. And so we talk about that a lot as a team because we're working on creative work. We also really talk about not being protective of our work. It's actually something we ask when we're interviewing. We always, because we're working with creatives, right, there can be a lot of protectiveness, but it's something that's really important for us not to do. And so it's something we always talk about. It's in all of our manuals. Like we'll share files, we'll work together on creative. And we really believe that together we can build really powerful creative, and being protective kind of isolates our ability to do that. The other thing that I've been doing is I also really like to position our work as like our work is challenging, and really accepting that challenge as part of our work. And it's actually a really exciting part of our work. And so anytime that we're kind of like hitting a wall, it'll be like, challenge is part of our work. Let's have fun with this. Let's work together to solve this. And really having that kind of, we can figure this out together mentality has helped a lot.
I love that so much, and you're getting all the praise in the chat, plus people co-signing on trust as a key factor. So I'd love for you to get granular, Amber. I think this is really helpful for the community. What's one ritual or habit that you have adopted for your team that's made trust a bridge at NITA?
Yeah, I think just one is a little hard, but just really building that safe place. We do biweekly like team building sessions, and something I love is that I'm not the person leading that. One of our team members will lead it every week, and they always choose something random. Like sometimes we'll work on like a creative project together. Other times we'll do like bingo. But really having that space where it's like, I'm not going to talk about work. Nobody's going to talk about work. We're just going to hang out and have time together. I think that has really made us more comfortable. And then things will come up where it's like, oh, like I always really struggle with like, I don't know, reading really dense paragraphs, or like you just like learn things about the team that it's hard to learn about when you're so busy working. And I really encourage like having that time. Like it saves you so much time in the long run because you can build trust with your team.
Oh my goodness. I love that so much. And it's making me think we were offsite with one of our partners in Chicago, and they are less creative, more like very much process oriented. But one of the things that they were saying is we want more time to be able to think outside of the box. We need more
Yeah,
time to be able to consider what if they fund initiatives across the country. And one of the things that came out was, one Friday a month they're going to have the first half of the day simply for creative project and ideation and
love
innovation.
that.
And it's making me think about what you just mentioned, because one of the questions we get a lot is around learning and development and how you support
Yeah.
learning and development when you might be a small, very scrappy startup or small business. And so, other than the creative bi-monthlies, are there any other ways that you are proactively supporting learning and development?
Yeah, definitely. So I think something as like founders, like we always like, oh, I want to like figure this out and do this. And I think so much of it comes back to like ask your team, talk to your team, see what they want, what would help them. And so we try to do that really regularly. We have like quarterly check-ins where we just ask like, what do you need to do to be happier, to do your job better? And one of the things that kept coming up was just having like a learning stipend. And so we do provide stipends every year. There's like a professional one and then a flexible one where our team can use it in any way that they want. And it's nice because it's not me saying we need to develop this skill, right? It's really them deciding like how they would like to utilize that. And so I think me spending time with them feeling open coming to me for that training is great too. But I really think like them knowing that they have the ownership to grow in the ways that they want to is really important. And just the last thing I'll say too is I think I also always tell the team, like, you're in this role now, but I want to know, like, if you see something where you would be happier doing this other position or even working on this different client, or like we can evolve together. And so just them knowing that they have like the safety and the flexibility in their role, like obviously not everything is possible, but just them knowing that they're safe makes a huge difference too.
I love that. I love the concept about, and we know it to be important, openness to where people are in their career journey, their stage of career, and being um, encouraging of helping support where they might want to go. I think that's powerful. One of the things that we saw one of our founder small businesses do is create what they call a manual of me. It is something that is created, a one pager, when a new employee joins the organization, and it is readily accessible. It's almost like a Facebook, an internal Facebook for each person on the team. But the whole reason it was created was that people get the opportunity to share their hobbies, their career interests, capabilities, and skills they have, and what they want to grow into. And it's a way for them to be able to have that transparency of knowledge sharing and also support people's growth. So I just love that there's so many different scrappy ways without a budget that you can help your team grow. And that's the point here. Two more questions and then get ready, community. We're coming to you for questions, and Ambar is going to stay with me for that. So we are ready. Get excited. So you mentioned you're heading into 7 years of business. We're so proud of you. 20 team members, and I'm a firm believer if they're contract full time, they are still team members. So 20 humans who are a part of your vision, which is great. Can you go back to when you were first starting to scale your company? And if you were going to offer some of our founders here who are growing their businesses one piece of feedback on what they should be mindful of in team effectiveness in the earlier days, what would you say?
Yeah. I really think that it's so easy to want to like hold the responsibility, hold the hard or what we see as the hard tasks and feel like there are certain things that only we can do. And I think that's one of the things that took me years to figure out, like, how do I pass on some of those things that I was holding on to? And as soon as I stopped holding on to things and I started just being transparent about the team, it just completely changed our dynamic and our culture. Even things like having clients, like I wasn't sure if I should like share budgets with our team or like how to manage those financial decisions. And now the team sees everything. And it just completely changed the dynamic because now they understand when I say, like, this is where we need to prioritize our time. This is how we can make these decisions around this client. Like, they get it and they can really see why I'm making those decisions, sometimes those hard decisions. And it makes a huge difference. So the control, just to, work on control and on trusting your team. They're amazing and they will really shine if you allow them to do that.
I love that. I think a lot of us, if we're honest, can say, well, I might have been, or I am the bottleneck to team effectiveness. It's me.
Yeah.
It's not a system.
Yeah.
It's not it's me. So I love that transparency because that is important as you're growing. Love it, love it. All right, final question, and then we'll open it up to the community. One of the things that you and I bonded over was our commitment to inclusivity and our commitment to people being able to show up as their full selves, and we value that. So I'd like to hear a little bit about this conversation of belonging as it relates to team effectiveness and seeing your colleagues for who they are as individuals. What do you have to offer in that space?
Yeah, I think there's two things right now. I think the first off is it has, in my space that I work in, and even just like with my community, it's just been a really hard year. And so I think like the first thing is just acknowledging the stress. And when there's challenging times, I feel like that can make a huge difference. Everyone has different things that they're going through at all times, obviously, but especially when it's larger than that, just acknowledging it makes a really huge difference. Like, it makes us feel safer in the space that we know, like, okay, we're all going through this. How can we work through it together? But I also think just in general, like for us, like we're focused on like utilizing our diverse cultures as a team to like build power for movements. And so it's really core to us that we celebrate our differences. Something I always really say that I think is key to why it's important in our work is that if we all have the same opinion or the same experience on something, like we're so much weaker than if we all have a different experience or a different opinion on something. And so that is really core to our work. We always try to look at our work with that lens of like, what is the experience that I bring and how does that impact the decisions that I'm making today? And really celebrating that and having the team feel comfortable in sharing as much as they want to in those aspects is really key. And so, yeah, I love celebrating those elements and just really creating that team where they feel safe is everything.
Beautiful. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining on the virtual stage and being such an incredible, inspiring leader. Now we get to get into the great part of answering questions from our community. It comes so fast on these webinars, but here we are. Molly, are we ready for
I
questions?
am back and we have a wealth of questions to get through. I think we'd love to start with one that came out of the conversation you both were having and all of the great advice hearing from what Ambar's doing within her business. And it was something that you mentioned, Amber, around constructive criticism being a core piece of your culture. And I think Chelsea would be really curious, and then to also have Amber answer what happens if what your company culture is dealing with is actually the opposite of constructive criticism. It is a complete aversion to providing criticism at all. You're in a culture of lots of kindness and yesness, but not able to provide a feedback loop. So what do you recommend founders do?
First of all, if you are desiring that there's another way and there's a better vision that you'd like to take your company in, you get to implement that. The thing that you'll want to know is anytime you're navigating change, there will be time. There will be time that's needed to get there because people are creatures of habit and they've been used to what has been the norm from starting. But I think it's one of those times where you want to have conversation and say, team, here's where we are. It's worked for us for this period of time, but here's some things that I think we can be open to, all of us, or that's going to be necessary for our next phase of growth. And so here's some practical ways that I'm going to support it, and you're going to have to model it first as founder, and then offer the tools and resources to help your team adopt through the process.
Mm-hmm. Amber, do you
I
want?
love that. Yeah, I think this is definitely something that we've worked through, and I feel like we've gotten to a really good place. And I think we're very lucky to have such a kind and caring team. And I think what it really is that is why framing it as constructive criticism is so important. I really think that constructive criticism is kindness. Like, you are working with them to provide feedback. You're not just saying, I hate these colors, right? You're saying, I don't like these colors because it reminds me of McDonald's. I don't know, right? But like there is a way to give feedback where it's constructive and it's helpful. And then there's a way to give feedback where it's really not helpful, and maybe it's hurtful. And I think that distinction as a team, it's given so much power to my managers where they've gone from like not wanting to give freelancers or other creatives like very constructive feedback to now they realize like they're actually helping everybody. They're helping them grow. They're helping our team grow. It's just a critical part of the process.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would just add really quickly, for most people, if you ask the question, we've polled this, if you ask about feedback, they think it's negative. So we have to also do the work of communicating that feedback is a gift. I used to hear that all the time when I was working in banking, and that if you're not getting it, that's actually the problem, right? But we have to make sure that that is something that our teams know is a bonus to our culture.
Amazing. You both were talking a lot around team building. And so if there would be one thing that a very busy founder could implement that would foster team building, what would that recommendation be? Like one easy, low lift, I'm going to dip my toe in and try a team building effort. Where should they start?
Amber,
Chelsea, do you have any thoughts? I mean, I definitely recommend like a regular team building. I think just in general, and have somebody else, if you have other team members, having somebody else lead it has been huge for us. I also just started we'll do like weekly kudos, like my managers will report to me and then I'll share it in Slack and like tag the freelancers, the contractors, the other team members. And that has been really cool too, because I'll give them credit, like they'll know who it came from. And it's just been such an easy but really nice way to show like your work is so impactful and we're talking about it even in the spaces that you're not in.
Yeah, yeah. And I would go back to Ambar actually said this, and I think it's quite powerful. We went through the session and gave you examples of tools. We did this audit process for you to understand some core pillars, but nothing is going to beat asking your team members. Nothing is going to beat having the question and saying, what are we doing well as a team? What systems or processes are working well and keeping us connected and efficient? And then what are some of the challenges? And then I think you responded today in our pulse from your vantage point, but once you hear from them, then you get to say, well, let's try it. And I think we all need to be comfortable that piloting or trying something is the first step. It may or may not work, but we're being open to a new opportunity and possibility. And that's what's important.
And what I love about what you both just did real time is just completely reframe the entire concept of team building. I think you think team, a lot of people will think team building and you immediately jump to, okay, it's a ropes course and we got to do a full
That's right.
audit and it
That's
becomes
right.
huge, right?
That's right.
And you said a simple question or put a win in the chat. That is, those micro interactions really are ultimately the basis of how people show up and feel every day. Chelsea, I want to jump back to a question that came in around the 4 health drivers: configuration, execution, alignment, and renewal. And because there are so many early stage founders on, and this question came right away as you put that. So what if you are one person? I am one person and I am all these health drivers, and what do I do for me?
Yeah.
And how important are these right now for myself and the business versus where, it could be a couple years from now?
Very good question. What you are doing now as a solopreneur is setting the foundation for what you will do when the team comes. That's one thing I wish someone had told me. When you have one team member, W-2 or 1099 too, how you start to integrate support and set up structure for them is what scales when you get to 2050, because it's mindset and actions. So I think that you get to decide what your vision and your goal is for your team and where you want to go. And you get to start to build the infrastructure and practices, infrastructure, system, tools, practices, what you do, how you unplug, how you fuel yourself, how you see a therapist, go for a walk, have community of business owners that you're a part of. You get to do that now, because what I believe is what you do as a leader is what you will allow those who are on your team to do as well. So if I'm taking care of my health and well-being, if I'm thinking about systems, I'm doing this one time, so the next time I do it, I can save time. Then when my team sees that and starts to do it, we'll be moving in the same direction because I've started the process. I just, it starts with the lead. It starts with the leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mackenzie asked an interesting question that is, if you are working in a type of business where maybe it's retail, you have, corporate retail, your store teams, your part-time agency contractors, how are some of the considerations around where team building centers, how does that evolve or look? Does it look different based on the types of roles people are filling within the organization and how much that investment in all of this talent and the talent development, how does that look or look different?
Ambar, do you want to take a stab first? You're in it.
Sure.
I am too, but you're in it.
Yeah, I think I can especially answer on the side of kind of contractors and freelancers and the distinction between employees. I think this definitely took us a long time to figure out. And I will say, actually, all of our full-time employees started as freelancers and contractors. And so I think definitely to Chelsea's point, like they are your team, right? Like freelancers, that's where most of us start. And I actually think you should start there. If you jump to employees, it's first off going to be a financial burden you're not expecting. But also it's just a different responsibility. Like I want to be able to provide benefits to my employees. They do have a different structure. I do expect more from a performance cycle from my employees, right? And so the setup of both is definitely different. And I do think treating them in that way is important. The other thing that I've kind of shifted in my mindset too is that things like our team building, for example, it's optional for contractors. We do encourage at least one a month, but we want them there. But the reality is they're not full time with us, right? We have to have different expectations for them. And if they're doing an amazing job at their work, that's why they're here to support our team. And we don't want them to feel like we're asking them for things that don't feel right for their role. And so part of it is like an expectations thing and like how we treat them. While knowing that it's very clear what values we're working for, what's our mission, what do our clients need, like all of those things need to stay consistent.
Yeah. I mean, Ambar, you said it. You really said it. It is an expectation piece first. Obviously, there's the legal and compliance piece here. So talk with your HR partner or individual to make sure you're being compliant because there are legal differences, 1099 and W-2. But outside of the legal piece, it's absolutely true. They're still part of your team. They're still showing up in support of product, service, mission, vision. So you want to make sure that they feel empowered as well and that they are open to the opportunities to be a part of the team. But those differentiations in role are really important and it helps you to set your expectations too. But I will also say, this is my opinion. I have had times where 1099s have been more in it and connected and supportive than W-2. So that's me. We've handled it, but I'm just saying I get less concerned, especially now with their classification and more concerned with the person's vision, their impact, their commitment. That matters more than a legal status. Chelsea's opinion.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think is great is you just tapped into like something beautiful. And there was a question that came in at registration around, people's time and talents. And the question is, uh, our business grows most when our team members are tapped in and honed in on their zone of genius. But not every team member knows what their secret sauce or their special ability is. So how can I discover or help team members unlock their superpowers and their talents in a way that sort of supercharges that zone of genius and isn't a resource drain on the organization? So I don't know, Chelsea,
Yeah,
do you want to, or Ambar, do you want to start first and then we'll go to Chelsea?
I will just say really quick, I think I mentioned this, but I'm really proud of constantly paying attention to our team. I actually think like just really getting to know their skills, but also their interests. Like I had one time where I interviewed someone, they were applying for an assistant role and I felt like it did not align with their skills, their experience, and so I actually ended up offering them something completely different, and it worked out really well. And I think that paying attention, and if it's not you, if you have a larger team, it can be somebody else who's paying attention like that. But not everybody, I mean, I don't even know sometimes the things I'm good at. And so kind of knowing that it takes like a level of alertness and curiosity too, can be really helpful. And just kind of really quick last note on the other thing too, I just wanted to mention understanding like where your team fits in. It's in different ways. It's not just skills. Like I have an employee who's part-time with us. She works like 25 hours a week and I wish she would do full-time. She doesn't want to. And I'm more than happy to have her in that role. And so I think also that flexibility of like, what's the best role for your team, just having those conversations and allowing them that space. I mean, she's been with us for 4 years and she's amazing. And so we can always compromise too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Ambar. Could not agree more. I mean, the first things I think about is I too have had a team member who started in one role, realized her capabilities and her strengths were in another place, She is so amazing, dynamic, committed, supportive that we're like, whatever we can do to keep you, because we just vibe, we will do it as much as it makes sense for the business. So I do think that that flexibility, and I know as you grow, that can get more challenging, to be clear. But when you can do it, do it. I think that's great. And then again, I'm not going to share anything that we haven't shared. That manual of me is a way that you can get from your team members their own responses to skills, values, hobbies, other interests that they have, so that you can use that as a guidepost and you can share that with each other. Projects can be created from that. New business ventures can come out of that. So I think that's huge. And then finally, I mentioned to you all the assessment. The Globe Smart assessment is one of the most powerful assessments for work styles and culture. It gives you the ability for people to know who they are and to parallel that to your team as a way to get that information to build bridges. So those are just a couple. I'm stating them again. Thank you so much, folks. I hope this was helpful. And I do want to make sure I can go back to my final slides before folks leave.
Yeah, let's bring back your slides before we close out for today's session. I think just really grateful that both of you are a part of the Tory Burch Foundation community. So Chelsea, let me hand it back to you to,
Really quick, 60
yeah.
seconds. So Ambar, thank you again. You're the best, and I'm very inspired by you. Folks, we want to give you a moment to put a bow on our conversation today. Share one takeaway that you have from this session that you're going to sit with, you're going to have a conversation on, maybe you're going to implement a tool, a resource, a practice. We want to make sure that you take a couple of seconds and just drop it in here. Sharing with each other in community is powerful. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds, or share in the chat if you'd like to respond to this question. And then I have an offer for some of you all, and then we will wrap up. Thank you. Spend time just paying attention to my team, being informed and empowered, considering all that my contractors can bring. Love it. I like the idea of the manual of me. Age does not define success. Hello, it sure doesn't.
That one gave me chills.
That was so good. Transparency, structuring projects. Love that leadership starts with you showing up. Yes, that's been an unlock for me in the past 12 months. Utilizing team building differently. See, Ambar, your suggestion. Feedback is paramount. Everything. Okay. Thank you that everything resonated. Work can be joy. Consciously constructive criticism. Listen to your team. Get that information and intel. Awesome. So we'll have 20 more seconds for any final thoughts. These are all so good, and I'm sure there's some in the chat as well. Work is not your identity. That's absolutely right. Okay, so this is great. Further education stipends, that's right. And I would say further education stipends, but also help your team guide them to the type of learning and resources that are most helpful too, because you want to make sure there is an ROI personally and professionally. Good stuff. All right. Well, thank you all so very much